The spaceship descended silently through the thick clouds, its sleek metallic surface shimmering faintly under the pale light of the moon. Inside, 4 young aliens sat huddled around a glowing holographic map of Earth. Their mission was simple: to understand why this small blue planet had earned the nickname Deathworld among the stars. The team consisted of Alex, Mia, Ryan, and Lily, students from Zoreth Prime's prestigious intergalactic academy. Though they were nervous, their excitement outweighed their fear. Alex leaned forward, his large dark eyes scanning the map. He was the leader of the group, known for his boldness and quick thinking. "We'll land here," he said, pointing to a spot near a dense forest outside a quiet town called Pine Ridge. "It's far enough from humans, but close enough to observe them if we need to." Mia nodded, her antennae twitching slightly as she processed the information. She was the brains of the operation, always careful and methodical. "Good choice," she replied. "The fewer people around, the better. We don't want any unnecessary risks." Ryan grinned, his sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. Out of all of them, he was the most eager to explore. "I heard Earth is full of dangerous animals," he said, rubbing his hands together. "This is going to be fun." Lily sighed softly, her gentle voice cutting through the chatter. She was the heart of the group, always concerned about safety and ethics. "Let's not forget why we're here," she reminded them. "We're supposed to learn, not get ourselves killed." The ship touched down gently on a patch of soft grass surrounded by towering trees. The air smelled strange, earthy, and alive, unlike anything they'd experienced before. As they stepped out, the cool breeze brushed against their skin. They wore special suits that made them look human, complete but uncomfortable in their new forms. Each suit came equipped with advanced cloaking devices and translation implants to help them blend in. "This place feels wild," Alex muttered, looking around. The forest stretched endlessly in every direction, its shadows dancing in the dim light of the setting sun. Birds chirped loudly overhead, while insects buzzed nearby. Every sound seemed louder, sharper, and more unpredictable than what they were used to back home. Mia activated her scanner, a small device hidden inside her pocket. "There are numerous life forms within a mile radius," she reported. "Most are harmless, but some have aggressive tendencies." "Aggressive? Perfect," Ryan exclaimed, already heading toward the edge of the clearing. "Let's check it out." "Wait," Lily called after him, grabbing his arm. "We should stay together. Remember, we're not invincible here." Reluctantly, Ryan slowed down, though his enthusiasm didn't fade. Together, the group moved cautiously into the woods, their footsteps crunching softly on the dry leaves below. The deeper they went, the darker it became. Strange noises echoed around them, hisses, growls, and distant howls that sent shivers down their spines. Suddenly, something darted across their path. It was small, furry, and fast. Startled, they froze, watching as the creature disappeared into the underbrush. "What was that?" Lily whispered, clutching her chest. "A mammal, probably," Maya answered, consulting her scanner again. "Nothing to worry about, yet." But even as she spoke, Alex noticed movement in the corner of his eye. A pair of glowing eyes stared back at him from behind a tree. Whatever it wasn't leaving. He signaled for the others to stay quiet and slowly backed away. "This planet means business," he murmured under his breath. "Let's set up camp and figure out our next move." As night fell, the forest came alive with sounds that none of them could identify. Despite their high-tech gear, the feeling of being watched lingered, making it hard to relax. For the first time, they understood why Earth was called the Deathworld, and they hadn't even scratched the surface. The next morning, the forest was bathed in soft golden sunlight. But the group of alien students didn't feel any safer. They had spent a restless night listening to strange noises, howls, rustling leaves, and distant screeches that made sleep nearly impossible. Alex sat by the edge of their makeshift campsite, staring at the dense trees. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Mia was already up, tinkering with her scanner, while Ryan stretched lazily, trying to act brave despite the dark circles under his eyes. Laylee, still wrapped in her blanket, looked pale and uneasy. "We need to move," Alex said finally, breaking the silence. "Staying in one place for too long isn't safe." Mia nodded, glancing at the readings on her device. "Agreed. There's a lot of movement around us. Whatever's out there, it knows we're here." Ryan smirked, grabbing a stick and pretending it was a weapon. "Let's hope something cool shows up. I'm getting bored just sitting around." Laylee shot him a disapproving look. "This isn't a game, Ran. We're not prepared for everything this planet can throw at us." Before anyone could respond, a loud hiss cut through the air. A snake-like creature slithered into view, its scales glistening in the sunlight. It had no legs, but its body moved quickly, almost gracefully, as it circled the group. At first glance, it seemed harmless, but then its mouth opened wide, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Stay back," Alex shouted, stepping in front of the others. His voice trembled slightly, betraying his calm exterior. Ryan, however, wasn't afraid. "Relax, it's just a snake," he said, raising his stick. But before he could do anything, the creature lunged toward him, its speed shocking everyone. Maya reacted fast, activating a small device on her wrist. A bright flash of light blinded the creature, causing it to retreat into the bushes. The group stood frozen, hearts pounding. "That was close," Laylee whispered, clutching her chest. "What even was that thing?" "A predator," Maya replied, her voice steady despite her own fear. "Earth's wildlife is far more dangerous than our textbooks described." As they continued deeper into the forest, the dangers kept coming. Laylee accidentally brushed against a plant with spiky leaves, only to find her skin breaking out in painful red welts. "It's poisonous," she gasped, holding her arm. Mia quickly applied a neutralizing gel from her pack, but the incident left them all shaken. Later, Ryan stepped on what looked like an ordinary patch of moss, only for it to suddenly tighten around his ankle. "What the?" he yelped, struggling to free himself. Alex and Mia worked together to cut through the vine-like growth, which seemed alive and determined to hold on. By the time they managed to pull him free, Ryan's leg was scratched and bruised. "This planet doesn't play fair," Alex muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Everything here is either trying to eat us or trap us." Despite the constant threats, the group pressed on, driven by curiosity and determination. As they climbed over fallen logs and pushed through thick underbrush, they stumbled upon something unexpected. A narrow dirt path winding through the trees. It looked man-made, with faint tire tracks etched into the ground. "Humans must use this trail," Mia observed, kneeling to examine the tracks. "We should follow it. Maybe we'll find someone who can tell us more about this place." No one argued. The idea of meeting humans was both exciting and nerve-wracking. What would they be like? Would they be friendly, or would they see the aliens as intruders? As they walked along the path, the forest began to thin out, revealing glimpses of open fields and distant hills. Then they heard voices, human voices. Ducking behind some bushes, they peeked out to see two figures approaching. A man carrying a rifle and a young girl walking beside him. The man, who introduced himself later as Jake, looked rugged and weathered, while the girl, Sophie, had a curious expression on her face. Alex turned to the others, whispering, "This is our chance. Let's see if we can learn something from them." With cautious steps, they emerged from the bushes, doing their best to appear non-threatening. Jake raised his rifle slightly, his eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" he demanded, his tone firm, but not hostile. "We're travelers," Alex replied carefully, using the translation implant to mimic human speech. "We got lost in the woods." Sophie tilted her head, studying them closely. "You don't look like tourists," she said, her voice filled with suspicion. Mia smiled nervously, trying to ease the tension. "We're students. We came here to study nature." Jake lowered his rifle slightly, though he still looked wary. After a moment of silence, he sighed. "All right, follow me. You can stay at my cabin tonight, but don't try anything funny." The group exchanged relieved glances. For the first time since arriving on Earth, they felt a glimmer of hope. Little did they know, their encounter with these humans would change everything they thought they knew about the Deathworld. The cabin was small but cozy, nestled at the edge of the forest with a view of rolling hills in the distance. Jake, the hunter, led the group inside, his rifle slung over his shoulder. Sophie followed closely behind, her bright eyes darting between the aliens, trying to figure them out. The cabin smelled of wood smoke and leather, and the walls were decorated with animal trophies, mounted deer heads, and framed photos of Jake and Sophie posing with their hunting gear. "Make yourselves comfortable," Jake said gruffly, gesturing toward the wooden table in the center of the room. Sophie, grab some chairs. The aliens exchanged nervous glances, but did as they were told. Alex took the lead, sitting down first to set an example for the others. Mia sat next to him, clutching her scanner discreetly under the table. Ryan leaned back in his chair, trying to act casual, while Lily stayed close to the door, ready to leave if things went wrong. Jake placed a pot of stew on the table and began dishing it out into bowls. "You said you're students?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "What kind of school sends kids into the woods without supplies?" Alex hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "It's a special program," he replied carefully. "We're studying Earth's ecosystem. Your planet is very different from ours." Jake chuckled, shaking his head. "Different? Yeah, I'll say. This place can be downright deadly if you don't know what you're doing." Sophie leaned forward, her curiosity getting the better of her. "Where are you from? You talk funny." Mia smiled faintly, activating her translation implant to smooth out her speech. "Far away," she said simply. "Very far." Jake didn't press further, though his sharp eyes suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. Instead, he focused on telling them about Pine Ridge and its history. "This area used to be full of settlers," he explained, stirring his stew. "But not many stayed. Too many dangers, wild animals, harsh winters, diseases. Only the tough ones survive around here." Ryan perked up at the mention of wild animals. "Like what?" he asked eagerly. "We saw this snake thing earlier. It had teeth like knives." Jake nodded knowingly. "Sounds like a timber rattler. They're venomous, but they won't bother you unless you bother them first." He paused, then added, "Of course, there are worse things out there. Bears, wolves, mountain lions, you name it." Lily shuddered visibly, imagining encountering any of those creatures. "How do humans live like this?" she blurted out before she could stop herself. Jake laughed, a deep, hearty sound that filled the room. "By being smarter than the animals," he said. "And by sticking together. Humans might not have claws or fangs, but we've got brains. That's how we've survived this long." Sophie chimed in, clearly enjoying the attention. "Dad says Earth is the toughest planet in the galaxy. Is that true where you come from?" The question caught the aliens off guard. Alex glanced at Mia, who gave a subtle nod. "Something like that," Alex admitted. "Your world has a reputation. A scary one." Jake frowned, leaning back in his chair. "Scary? Nah, just challenging. Every planet's got its problems. Ours just happens to have bigger teeth and sharper claws." As the evening wore on, the conversation shifted to local legends. Sophie lit up, recounting stories passed down through generations. "There's this one about the black wolf," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "They say it roams the woods at night, looking for lost travelers. If it finds you, you're never seen again." Ryan smirked, clearly amused. "A wolf? That doesn't sound so bad." Jake shot him a warning look. "Don't underestimate it, kid. The black wolf isn't just any animal. Some folks think it's cursed. Mia tilted her head, intrigued. Cursed, like magic. More like bad luck, Jake replied. People who cross its path tend to meet trouble real quick. Could be an accident, illness, or something worse. No one knows for sure. The aliens listened intently, piecing together clues about humanity's relationship with danger. To these people, fear wasn't just about survival. It was part of their culture, woven into their stories and traditions. Later, as the fire crackled softly in the hearth, Lily found herself staring at the mounted deer head on the wall. "Do humans hunt for fun?" she asked quietly. Jake shook his head. "Not always. Sometimes it's necessity. Other times it's respect. Taking life isn't something we do lightly." Lily nodded slowly, absorbing his words. For the first time, she began to see humans not just as survivors, but as complex beings shaped by their struggles. When it was time to sleep, Jake offered them blankets and showed them to the spare room. As they lay side by side on the floor, the aliens whispered among themselves, reflecting on what they'd learned. "This place is more than just dangerous," Mia murmured. "It's alive. Everything fights to live, even humans. And they tell stories about it," Lily added, "like it's part of who they are." Alex stared at the ceiling, deep in thought. If we want to understand why Earth is called the Deathworld, we need to learn more about them. Humans are the key. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, carrying whispers of the wild. The aliens drifted off to sleep, their minds racing with questions, and a growing sense of awe for the strange, perilous planet they had come to study. The next morning, the group decided to explore a nearby river that Jake had mentioned during dinner. He warned them it was teeming with life, some of it dangerous, but the aliens were determined to see for themselves. Armed with their cloaking devices and scanners, they set out early, following the dirt path that led away from the cabin. The air was cool and crisp, and the sound of rushing water grew louder as they approached. When they reached the riverbank, they stopped to take in the sight. The water sparkled under the sunlight, flowing swiftly between jagged rocks. Birds chirped overhead, and tall reeds swayed gently in the breeze. It looked peaceful, almost inviting. But the aliens knew better than to let their guard down. "This place feels alive," Lily said softly, kneeling to examine a cluster of strange, colorful plants growing near the edge of the water. "Look at these flowers. They're beautiful." Mia crouched beside her, scanning the plants with her device. "Be careful," she warned. "Earth's beauty often hides danger. Some of these might be toxic." Ryan ignored their caution, already wading into the shallow part of the river. "Come on, you two. We're here to study, not admire the view," he called over his shoulder, splashing water playfully. Alex rolled his eyes, but couldn't help smiling. "Stay close, Ryan. We don't know what's lurking beneath the surface." As if on cue, something moved in the deeper part of the river. A ripple broke the calm surface, followed by another. The group froze, watching intently. Then, without warning, a massive creature burst from the water, a cross between an alligator and a fish, with armored scales and rows of jagged teeth. Its eyes locked onto Ryan, who was now waist-deep in the current. "Get out of there," Alex shouted, panic rising in his voice. Ryan scrambled backward, slipping on the slick stones beneath his feet. The creature lunged forward, its powerful tail propelling it through the water with terrifying speed. Just as it seemed ready to strike, Mia activated her force field generator, creating a shimmering barrier between Ryan and the beast. The creature slammed into the invisible wall, snarling and thrashing before retreating into the depths. Breathing heavily, Ryan climbed back onto the bank, his face pale. "Okay, maybe I was wrong about this place being safe," he admitted, shaking water from his arms. Lily rushed to his side, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "No, just embarrassed," Ryan muttered, avoiding eye contact. Alex clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. "We need to be smarter about this. Earth isn't forgiving mistakes. Mia nodded, still holding her scanner. Let's collect some samples and leave. This area is too unpredictable. They worked quickly, gathering water, soil, and plant specimens while keeping a wary eye on the river. Every splash made them jump. Every shadow sent shivers down their spines. The earlier encounter had left them shaken, but also more determined than ever to understand the planet's lethal nature. As they packed up their gear, Lily noticed something odd. A patch of mud near the water's edge seemed to shift slightly, as though it were alive. She knelt down to inspect it closer, poking it gently with a stick. To her horror, the ground gave way beneath the stick, pulling it downward. "Guys, look at this," she called, scrambling backward. Alex and Mia hurried over, examining the spot. "Quicksand," Maya said grimly. "It blends in perfectly with the surroundings. One wrong step, and you're trapped." Ryan groaned, running a hand through his damp hair. "Great. First killer fish, now sinking mud. What's next?" Before anyone could answer, a low growl echoed from the trees behind them. The group spun around, hearts pounding. Hidden among the bushes, glowing eyes stared back at them, unblinking. "We should go." Now, Alex said firmly, gripping his backpack tightly. Without hesitation, they turned and ran, leaving the river behind. The growls faded into the distance, but the sense of being watched lingered. When they finally reached the safety of the dirt path, they collapsed, exhausted and rattled. "This planet doesn't give you a break," Maya said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Every step is a gamble." Lily hugged her knees to her chest, staring at the forest. How do humans live like this, constantly surrounded by threats? "They adapt," Alex replied thoughtfully. "That's what makes them so fascinating. And maybe that's why Earth earned its name." The others fell silent, reflecting on his words. For all its dangers, Earth was a world of resilience and survival, a living, breathing challenge that shaped everything it touched. As they trudged back toward the cabin, the aliens felt a newfound respect for the planet and its inhabitants. But they also knew one thing for certain: their journey was far from over. When the group returned to Jake's cabin, Lily wasn't feeling well. Her face was pale, and she kept rubbing her hands together as if they were itching. Alex noticed first and frowned. "Lily, what's wrong?" he asked, concern in his voice. "I don't know," she replied weakly. "My skin feels strange. It started after I touched those berries near the river." Mia quickly pulled out her scanner and ran it over Lily's arm. The device beeped softly, and Mia's expression turned serious. "It's a reaction to something toxic," she explained. "Those berries must have been poisonous. We need to treat this fast." Jake, who had been sitting by the fire cleaning his rifle, looked up when he heard the commotion. "What happened?" he asked, standing up. "One of us got sick," Alex said, trying to stay calm. "We think it's from touching a plant." Jake nodded, already moving toward a cabinet in the corner of the room. "Sounds like poison ivy or something worse. Hold on." He rummaged through the shelves and pulled out a small jar filled with a green paste. "This should help. Spread it on the affected areas." Lily hesitated but took the jar, applying the paste carefully to her arms. Almost immediately, the itching began to subside. "Thank you," she whispered, relief washing over her face. Ryan watched silently, looking uneasy. "How do humans deal with stuff like this all the time?" he muttered. "One wrong move, and you're done for." "It's not just about avoiding mistakes," Jake said, leaning against the table. "It's about knowing your environment. Every plant, every animal. There's a lesson there if you pay attention." Mia nodded thoughtfully. "Humans have adapted to Earth's dangers. But it's more than that, isn't it? You've learned to use what's around you to survive." Jake smiled faintly. "Exactly. Take medicine, for example. A lot of our cures come from plants. Even this paste I gave you is made from local herbs. Nature can kill you, sure, but it can also save you, if you know how to work with it. The aliens exchanged glances, realizing how much they still had to learn. Earth wasn't just dangerous. It was complex, full of hidden rules and balances that humans navigated daily. Later that evening, Sophie joined them, carrying an old book filled with sketches of animals and plants. "Dad says you're studying Earth," she said, placing the book on the table. "This might help." Alex flipped through the pages, marveling at the detailed drawings. "These are incredible," he said. "Did you make these?" Sophie shook her head. "No, my grandpa did. He loved exploring the woods. He used to teach me which plants were safe to eat and which ones would make you sick." Lily leaned forward, her interest piqued despite her earlier scare. "Do humans always pass down this kind of knowledge?" "Mostly," Jake answered. "But sometimes we figure things out the hard way. Trial and error. That's how we've survived this long." As the night wore on, the conversation turned to humanity's history. Jake shared stories of wars, plagues, and natural disasters, events that had nearly wiped out entire populations. Yet each time, humans found a way to rebuild, adapt, and thrive. "It's like you never give up," Maya said, her voice filled with admiration. "Even when everything seems hopeless." Jake shrugged. "Giving up isn't an option. Not here. This planet will test you until your last breath, but it'll also reward you if you're smart enough to earn it." Ryan smirked. "Sounds like quite the challenge." "It is," Jake replied, his tone serious. "But challenges shape us. They make us stronger, smarter. Maybe that's why Earth has such a reputation." The aliens sat quietly, absorbing his words. For the first time, they saw Earth's dangers not as random threats, but as pieces of a larger puzzle, a system designed to push life to its limits. By the time they went to bed, Lily's condition had improved significantly, thanks to Jake's remedy. As she lay under the blanket, she couldn't help but reflect on the day's events. Earth was harsh, yes, but it was also fascinating. Its perils weren't just physical. They were microscopic, invisible, and deeply intertwined with survival itself. Alex stared at the ceiling, deep in thought. "We came here to understand why Earth is called the Deathworld," he whispered to no one in particular. "But maybe the real question is, why does anything survive here at all?" The others didn't respond, but their silence spoke volumes. They were beginning to see that Earth's deadliest feature wasn't its predators or poisons. It was its relentless demand for adaptation. And yet, somehow, life endured. The next day, the sky turned dark unexpectedly. Heavy clouds rolled in, blocking out the sun and casting an eerie shadow over the forest. Jake glanced at the horizon as he stepped outside, shaking his head. "Storm's coming," he said. "You'd better find shelter." The aliens looked at each other nervously. They had already faced so many dangers on Earth, but a storm felt different, unpredictable, and uncontrollable. Alex took charge immediately. "Let's head back to the cabin," he suggested. "It's closer than the ship." But before they could move, a loud clap of thunder echoed through the air, followed by a flash of lightning that lit up the entire forest. The wind picked up, whipping leaves and branches into a frenzy. Ryan shielded his face with his arm. "We can't go back now," he shouted over the growing roar of the storm. "It's too far." Jake pointed toward an old barn nestled in a clearing not far from where they stood. "Over there. It's not much, but it'll keep you dry." Without hesitation, the group sprinted toward the barn, their footsteps crunching against the wet ground. By the time they reached it, rain was pouring down in sheets, soaking everything in sight. The barn was run down, its wooden walls warped and splintered, but it offered some protection from the chaos outside. Inside, the air smelled musty, and the floor was covered in straw and dirt. The group huddled together near the center, listening to the storm rage around them. Lightning illuminated the cracks in the walls, casting jagged shadows across the room. "This place isn't exactly safe," Mia muttered, inspecting the structure with her scanner. The roof could collapse if the wind gets worse. As if on cue, a loud creak made everyone freeze. The sound came again, louder this time, followed by the unmistakable growl of animals outside. Alex moved closer to the door, peering through a gap in the wood. His eyes widened. "Wolves," he whispered. "A whole pack is circling the barn." Ryan groaned, gripping his makeshift stick tightly. Of course. Why wouldn't there be wolves? Lily clutched her arms, shivering despite the warm, humid air. "What do? We can't fight them off." Jake stepped forward, his voice steady. "Stay calm. Wolves are smart. If we don't provoke them, they might leave us alone." But the wolves weren't interested in leaving. One of them howled, the sound piercing through the storm, and soon the others joined in. The noise sent chills down everyone's spines. Then, without warning, one of the creatures broke through a weak section of the wall, its teeth bared and eyes glowing in the dim light. "Get back!" Alex yelled, pushing Lily behind him. Ryan swung his stick wildly, trying to scare the wolf away, but it only snarled, snapping its jaws inches from his face. Mia acted quickly, activating a temporary force field from her wrist device. The shimmering barrier pushed the wolf back, giving the group precious seconds to regroup. "We need to reinforce the walls," she shouted above the storm. Working together, they dragged pieces of broken furniture and tools to block the gaps. Alex and Ryan used their strength to hold the largest pieces in place, while Maya scanned for weak spots. Lily stayed close to the center, her heart racing as the wolves continued to howl and scratch at the barn. Finally, after what felt like hours, the storm began to subside. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and the wind died down. Outside, the wolves' growls faded into the distance as they retreated into the forest. Exhausted and soaked, the group collapsed onto the damp floor. "That was too close," Lily murmured, her voice trembling. "How do humans survive storms like that?" Jake smiled faintly, though his expression was grim. "They don't always, but when they do, it's because they work together. Survival here isn't about being the strongest. It's about being smart and sticking together." Alex nodded, looking around at his teammates. Despite their fear, they had managed to protect each other. For the first time, he truly understood why Earth was called the Deathworld. It wasn't just the dangers, it was the constant demand to adapt, to think fast, and to rely on one another. As they prepared to leave the barn, the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds. The storm had passed, but the memory of the wolves lingered in their minds. Earth had tested them once again, and they had barely survived. Yet, as they walked back toward the cabin, Alex couldn't help but feel a spark of admiration for the planet and its people. Survival here wasn't just a challenge, it was an art. Back at Jake's cabin, the group sat around the fire, their clothes still damp from the storm. The warmth of the flames helped dry them off, but it did little to ease the tension in the air. They had faced so many dangers on Earth: wild animals, poisonous plants, quicksand, and now a pack of wolves. But something about the planet kept drawing them in. It wasn't just its threats, it was the way humans lived alongside them, adapting and surviving. Jake leaned back in his chair, watching the aliens closely. "You've seen a lot in just a few days," he said, breaking the silence. "What do you think of Earth now?" Alex hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "It's complicated. Everything here fights to survive. Even the smallest things can be dangerous." Mia nodded, her fingers tracing the edge of her scanner. "But that's not all. Humans don't just survive. They create. You build shelters, make medicine, hunt for food. You turn challenges into opportunities." Sophie smiled proudly. "That's what makes us strong. We don't give up, no matter how hard things get." Ryan tilted his head, looking thoughtful. "But isn't that also what makes Earth so deadly? Humans fight each other too, right? Wars, pollution, destroying nature." Jake sighed, nodding slowly. "Yeah, we're not perfect, Humans have done a lot of damage to the planet, to animals, even to each other. But we've also learned from our mistakes. Sometimes it takes losing something important to realize its value. Lily looked up, her voice soft but steady. Do you think humans will ever stop hurting the Earth? I hope so, Jake replied, staring into the fire. Some people are trying to fix things, planting trees, cleaning rivers, protecting wildlife. But change is slow, and not everyone cares enough to help. The conversation turned quieter after that, each of them lost in their own thoughts. The aliens had come to study Earth's dangers, but they were beginning to see that the planet's true complexity lay in its balance between creation and destruction. Every life form, every system, was connected in ways they hadn't fully understood before. Later, as the fire burned lower, Alex spoke up. We've learned a lot, but there's one thing I still don't understand. Why do humans keep going? Even when everything seems hopeless, why don't you give up? Jake chuckled softly, shaking his head. Because giving up means losing everything, and humans hate losing. Besides, he paused, glancing at Sophie. We've got something worth fighting for. Family, friends, dreams. That's why we keep pushing forward. The room fell silent again, the weight of his words sinking in. For the aliens, this was a revelation. Back home, survival was simpler, more predictable. On Earth, it was messy, chaotic, and often painful, but also deeply meaningful. As the night wore on, the group decided it was time to prepare for their departure. Their mission was nearly complete, and they needed to report their findings. But leaving felt bittersweet. Earth had tested them in ways they never expected, forcing them to confront their own fears and limitations. Before they left, Lily approached Jake and Sophie, holding out a small object, a smooth, glowing stone crafted from alien materials. This is for you, she said, smiling shyly. Thank you for everything. Jake took the stone, examining it with wide eyes. What is this? A gift, Mia explained. A reminder of our visit. Maybe someday, humans will explore the stars like we do. Sophie grinned, clutching the stone tightly. That would be amazing. As the aliens stepped outside, the morning sun bathed the cabin in golden light. They activated their cloaking devices, vanishing from sight. Jake and Sophie stood on the porch, waving goodbye to empty air. They'll figure it out, Jake said, placing a hand on Sophie's shoulder. Humans always do. Invisible to the humans, the aliens boarded their ship and ascended into the sky. As Earth grew smaller beneath them, they reflected on what they'd learned. Earth's reputation as the Deathworld wasn't just about its dangers. It was about resilience, creativity, and the delicate balance between life and death. And though they were leaving, the lessons of Earth would stay with them forever. The spaceship soared silently through the atmosphere, leaving Earth behind. Inside, the 4 alien students sat in quiet reflection, their minds still buzzing with everything they had experienced. The view of Earth from space was breathtaking, a vibrant blue sphere dotted with swirling clouds and patches of green and brown. It looked peaceful from this distance, almost fragile, as if it could shatter at any moment. But the group knew better. They had seen firsthand how fierce and unforgiving the planet truly was. Alex broke the silence first, his voice steady but filled with emotion. We came here to understand why Earth is called the Deathworld, he said, staring out the window. But I think we found something more. Mia nodded, her antennae twitching slightly under her disguise. It's not just about the dangers. It's about how life survives despite them. Humans don't just endure. They adapt, create, and fight back. Ryan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Yeah, but isn't that also what makes them dangerous? They destroy forests, pollute rivers, and kill each other over land or power. They're tough, but they're reckless too. Lily sighed softly, her gentle voice cutting through the tension. That's true, but they're also capable of kindness. Jake and Sophie risked their lives to help us, and humans are trying to fix some of the harm they've caused. Maybe that balance between destruction and creation is what defines them. The others fell silent, considering her words. Earth wasn't a simple place. It was a world of contradictions, beautiful yet brutal, creative yet destructive, resilient yet vulnerable. For every threat they had encountered, snakes, wolves, storms, poisons, there had been moments of wonder and connection. The glowing sunset over the river, the warmth of Jake's fire, the stories shared by Sophie, all these things had left an impression on them. As the ship entered the void of space, Alex turned to face the group. What should we tell the Academy when we get back? That Earth is deadly. Yes, but it's also alive in ways we can't fully explain. It's a place where survival isn't just about strength. It's about ingenuity, teamwork, and hope. Mia smiled faintly, tapping her scanner. I'll include that in my report. Humans are flawed, but they're remarkable too. Their ability to adapt might be the key to understanding why Earth has such a reputation. Ryan grinned, leaning back in his seat. And maybe one day, they'll figure out how to explore the stars like us. Wouldn't that be something? Lily looked out the window one last time, watching as Earth faded into the distance. They already inspire us, she said quietly. Maybe someday we'll inspire them. When they returned to Zorith Prime, the aliens were greeted by their instructors, eager to hear about their findings. Alex stepped forward, holding up a holographic projection of Earth. This planet is unlike anything we've studied before, he began. It's harsh, unpredictable, and full of danger, but it's also full of life, creativity, and resilience. Humans call it home, and they've earned their place here. The room fell silent as the instructors absorbed his words. One of them finally spoke. So, is Earth truly the Deathworld? Alex exchanged a glance with his teammates before answering. Yes, but not for the reasons we expected. Its deadliest feature isn't its predators or its storms. It's the delicate balance between life and death, creation and destruction. And perhaps that's what makes it so extraordinary. The mission was complete, but the lessons of Earth stayed with them. They had set out to study a planet known for its dangers, only to discover something far greater: the tenacity of life itself. As they walked away from the debriefing room, the aliens couldn't help but feel change. Earth had tested them, challenged them, and ultimately taught them something profound about survival, not just on that planet, but across the galaxy. Somewhere deep in space, Earth continued its eternal dance, unaware of the impact it had made on 4 young visitors. And perhaps somewhere in the future, those visitors would return the favor, bringing the spirit of Earth's resilience to the stars.